Welcome everyone. Thank you for attending. You are the hardcore people. You want to do all the sessions. I like that. So, you all interested in Microsoft Teams? Do you have any issues on the network? Sometimes? Yeah, we're going to talk about that. Like, I'm going to talk about top 5 things you need to know to optimize your network, right? Because we don't own the network. We need to rely on other people to help us. So, let me talk about that. I am Johan Delliman. I come from Belgium. I'm a 10-year plus MVP. So, dating back from Exchange, LCS, Link, Skype, now Teams, of course. So, I have really great experience because a lot of the things you need to do for Skype for Business also apply for Microsoft Teams. So, this is a slide. I won't cover it, but it will be in the deck. It's more information about me. So, I want to first run through you why we need to do something on the network for Microsoft Teams. Because we blame it on the network. This is very true, but if you need to blame it on the network, it was because you did not do your job. Because we have to explain to all the network people what they have to do in order to fix it. Because they don't have a clue, they don't know how to do it. We know how to do it, but we need to discuss, right? You need to involve them from the beginning. So it's not the network, it's because you did not do your job, right? So I want to go back a little while because we have to explain why networks are built the way they are, right? We have the pre-internet age where there was a network, corporate network, where we had internal resources and all the clients connect to the internal resources. So that was happening those days, right? But of course, after a while, the internet came there, so we want to use internet. So what happens? Internet is kind of like not secure, so we want to protect it from our corporate network. So what do? We implement a proxy server and firewalls so that we secure that environment, right? So and then if users want to connect to internet, they connect to a proxy, and that proxy connects to the firewall, which has configuration so that the proxy can connect to internet, right? And there's some very good reasons why we do that, because of security, control, compliance, right? But there are other things. Well, in that stage, we don't trust anything except our internal network, right? But of course, when we need to migrate to a cloud-based resource, this all has to change. Now, there is additionally some other things that we want to do. We connect from the outside to our internal resources. Probably most of you have a solution for this, which is considered to be, well, it's not allowed, but we have a solution for that. So VPN actually makes that capable that we connect to our internal resources. So in that case, we actually trust everything in our internal network in addition to the PC that the user is using at home through that VPN channel, right? Now, if we move to a cloud age, right, we are going to move our resources to the cloud, then we actually have to connect that same way. We connect through the proxy, we connect through the firewall, but is that really what we want? Is that optimized? Probably not. So additionally, users in remote sites, they have the same path, they connect to internet, but is that a good idea? Because then they have to travel all the way over the internal network before they exit to internet, right? It may all work for SharePoint or maybe for Exchange, but Skype for Business and Teams, it's a real-time application, so you need to have great performance. So, but in addition, when people connect over a VPN, they usually also have to go through this proxy and this firewall, right? That happens in a lot of companies. All of those things may not be in your organization, but this is really very common in large organizations, but it applies to you too. So if for one reason or another you're not using any of those components, that's a luck for you, so you don't have to fix it, right? So, but in this stage, we still don't trust Office 365 because we still have to go through all those security controls. So what do we need to do? well, those are all the problems we had, and that's what I was telling you. So we have to remediate all of these issues. So first of all, we have to tackle the reverse proxy. So let's make it sure that reverse proxy is working fine with our internet-based resources. So what do we need to do? Maybe we're going to remove the proxy, but then the network team will kill you, right? Because they don't want to do that. So what can we do? We can make sure that we exclude everything that goes to Office 365 from the proxy, right? So we have to work around it. So in that case, the user will send its connection directly to the firewall, but of course we haven't touched the firewall yet, so this will be broken. He won't be able to connect to the internet because there's no rule that allows that, right? So remove proxy if that's even an option, or get proper exceptions in place, right? Proxy exceptions. How do you do that? Most companies actually use a proxy point pack file where you have a list of exceptions and other configuration items for your browser, or some use exceptions in the browser itself. You can configure that through GPOs if you want. Of course, we want to have direct connection to internet. That's the intention. We don't want to be bothered by the proxy server because performance will not be great. Now, one of the things, we know the URLs where we want to connect to because there is a Microsoft website that shows you all this information, but that changes quite a lot. So that's very unlucky because you always have to talk to the network guys. Please update your configuration. And most likely, this is not going to be something that happens automatically, right? But there is now a secondary link where we have the web service. That's something brand new from Microsoft. And some third-party vendors, they actually connect to the web service and allow all of those things to be configured automatically. So that's what you want. But chances are high that your solution may not be compatible with that, right? So then you have to do it all yourself. Talk to the security guys, network guys, and make sure it happens. So if you look at this Skype and Teams URLs, so this is the Microsoft website you look at. So all of those URLs, they need to be whitelisted in your proxy. Of course, this same page has all the IP addresses, which we have to talk about in the firewall. And then we have the web service that actually gives you a really long list, because you have to look at the bar here, like how long is this list, right? This is for all the services from Office 365. And this is specifically a section that begins with Skype and Teams. Now let's fix the firewall issues. So we allow all the traffic through the firewall. That's not something firewall guys really like, because they say, no, we want to control everything. But no, you cannot, because you will break the experience. You will break Microsoft Teams. So what do they need to do? Allow all the IPs for Office 365. And you saw the list. Quite a challenge, right? And we need to have the proper ports to be open. It's not just 334 TCP, right? Because we actually use, we have the same here, but for example, we use also some UDP ports. If you block the UDP ports, you will have issues, because we want to use UDP for Microsoft Teams. That's the best performance you get for meetings, for calling, for all of those great features. So both TCP and UDP, and make sure all of those ports are open. Now the third thing, a VPN. Do we need to fix it? I think so, because all companies I work with, they say, well, the VPN works. I say, yes, it works, but is it great? For one user, it's probably okay, but then you want to run 10,000 users through that VPN tunnel, doing audio and video. Not a great idea. So what we have to do is we have to make sure that all the communication for Office 365 does not go through the tunnel. We have to make sure it goes direct. While this is an easy picture, it's not an easy configuration, because all firewalls and VPNs work differently, so you may have a lot of work in order to get this correctly, right? But you have to do that. So One of the actual biggest problems is you need split VPN tunnels. No one likes split VPN tunnels if you're in security, because you say we connect to internet and our local resources on our network at the same time. So you open up potentially a big risk. But if you do it correctly, you allow Office 365 IPs and you block all the rest, it's still secure because you want to trust Office 365. So the same here. Now we are in a situation where we actually trust Office 365. It's an extension of our network, and we can do communication freely. So it looks like it's on the MPLS network, which is not because it's on internet, but we trust it. We allow all communication to go over there. That's what we want, right? That's the best experience you will have. Now it doesn't stop there, because we have to do some other things in order to maintain quality and maybe optimize quality. We have to think about round-trip delays and internet breakouts. So we have to make sure that we communicate very fast to Office 365 and it doesn't take too long. Because if you do audio-video calls, going over a certain amount of milliseconds, which is 150 in total, you begin to notice that the quality will not be great anymore, and it will degrade. So you have to make sure that you connect correctly to internet. So in this case, we have a user in the corporate network who connects to Office 365. He uses the local internet breakout, so he has probably the best performance he can get. But this user in the remote side now suddenly has to use those resources or internet breakouts in the central location, right? And he will have more distance between those networks, so his delay will be much bigger. So we have to make sure that we connect to internet as fast as possible. And the internet, we actually want to connect to the transport relays, which is specifically created for Microsoft Teams and Skype. If you get to that point, you're on the Microsoft network, and all the rest is managed by Microsoft. That's going to be very great quality. But you have to make sure you are on those components as fast as possible. So what we have to do on the remote side is we have to make sure that that guy can connect to those transport relays as close as possible, right? And there are many transport relays. There will be more and more. And chances are high that within your own country, there's a transport relay, right? So if you connect in the remote site in Europe directly to that relay instead of going to US, that will be very good for you. Your quality will be very much better. So then you will see the Microsoft network will take care of all the rest. One other thing you have to keep in mind is direct peering with Microsoft. That is something that you want, but you don't control it because it's your ISP, your internet provider, who needs to do that. So your internet provider has to make sure that he connects to Microsoft in one hub. Like, he doesn't need to go through so many routers. It's just one hub, and he's at Microsoft. Most internet providers do that already because more and more people go to Office 365, but still, maybe it's a good idea to check, right? And for some reasons, maybe ExpressRoute may be a good idea if, for example, security teams don't allow you to do certain things. Maybe ExpressRoute can help you there. Now, other tools from Microsoft that can help you troubleshoot this or pinpoint whether you have sufficient network connectivity to Microsoft 365 is the Skype for Business network assessment tool. Now it says Skype for Business, but it also says Microsoft Teams, right? So it's as well for Skype for Business as well for Teams. So don't be afraid to implement it, because you will see that you will do two things. You will test your network edge to Microsoft, and you will test your client machines to Microsoft Network. Those all have to be within a certain range to be certified, I would say, to have great quality. And you have to do that in every site. Because all the sites, you need to check. You need to be sure that your connection is great to Microsoft. So this is kind of like the table that Microsoft explains. For example, so round-trip times from the client machines, we want to have sub 100 milliseconds connections to Microsoft. Microsoft guarantees you, if you have that value or less, that you have optimal quality, right? Of course, we don't want to have packet loss, we don't want to have jitter either, but those things you don't really control so much because internet is in between, and yeah, maybe it's not up to us, but maybe we need to discuss with the networking teams. But anyway, this is what you can see for this tool. And then the last piece we have to do is looking at our internal network. So we looked at everything external, but still for the internal network, we also have to do some stuff. Because if those two guys want to talk to each other, they will optimally connect directly to each other, right? But of course, there's a firewall. Most likely, somewhere is a firewall that will block that communication. What is going to happen in that case? Will communication still work? It will still work, but you see, we will use the transport relays to connect this call. Is that good? Yes, essentially we have a call, but it's not optimized because we can have better quality. It's the same way for the remote side. Maybe that's also blocked, and maybe the communication is going over transport relays in different locations. Now, funny enough, some customers actually ask me, can we use the Microsoft network because our MPLS network is not really great? So maybe you want it, maybe not, but be aware, this can happen. So we actually want to have communication directly between endpoints because that's the most optimal path you can get. And assuming that our MPLS network is performing fine, that will all be great. So for all of this to work, you will have to work with the networking team, right? Because they will have to open ports. They don't want to do that, but they probably don't have a choice because the business requires this to be a great application. So these are the client port ranges. Currently, you cannot change them. I have seen some interfaces at Microsoft in the portal that you could change them, so maybe in the future that may happen, but for audio, you will use 50,000 until 50,019. You have video port range, and then application sharing and file transfer use the same port ranges. But for now, these are the port ranges you have to configure, you have to allow in your internal network, right? So one additional thing that you can do is create quality of service so that in your internal network, all your audio and video is prioritized above all other traffic. You also have to use those port ranges in that case. Because you will create GPOs that have the application, Microsoft Teams, and the application, Skype for Business, to apply QoS policies based on those port ranges. So this is kind of like the summary slide. So what do we need to do, the road to happiness, because we want to have great quality? Actually, I forgot one, because the one important one is your network team needs to be involved in your project. If they are not involved, you will fail. So that's the first thing you need to do, because all of those things are network related. So we want to configure proxy exceptions because we want to avoid proxies, directly connect to Office 365. Same way for firewalls, we want to avoid them. We want to allow all those ports and IPs. We don't want to use the VPN to have our media flowing over the VPN. No, we want to connect directly to Office 365. We want to make sure that our internet connection is as close to the user as possible and that we connect to the transport relays as fast as we can for better performance. And then we have to make sure we fix our internal firewalls and we may be able to be applying QoS. So that's a short session about what you can do on the network to optimize your communications for Microsoft Teams. Thank you.